Hello and welcome to the University of Indianapolis. These are Chem Pre-Lab videos. Today the thing we'd like to do is walk through with you how to set up this handy device here. This is the SpectroVis. Yes. And so in order to do that, we're going to do some different stuff here. So the first thing that we want to do is actually look at the computer software itself. The computer software looks a little bit something like this. Okay, so the software you're seeing here on the screen is the Logger Pro software for Mac. It looks very similar to the Logger Pro software for the PC. Right now, there should be this thing in the upper left-hand corner. It's very hard to see, sorry, but it says no device connected. And that's because, shockingly, there's no device connected. We need to do that. So, here we go. Here is our Logitech device, okay? Please note, okay, it's just this simple looking box thing like this. It's got a USB cable that comes, just a standard USB cable that goes out the other end of it. You need to plug that into the computer directly, okay? Do not plug that into anything else. Other devices that we're going to use this semester, we will need to plug into a different box. But if we plug that directly in, what we're going to see is our software ends up changing for us. The software, if this is working properly, is going to auto-detect the piece of equipment that we're working with. So we've got this rainbow thing going on now. The rainbow is because we're using a visible light spectrometer. It's going to be able to help you do the Beer's Law experiment that you're going to be doing in the coming week's lab. Now the sample holder that you're going to use is this thing right here. See how it's really clear? This is called a cuvette, okay? It doesn't hold a lot of fluid. This cuvette maybe holds on a good day 2-3 milliliters of fluid tops. And if I hold it like this, haha, you can't see me as well. But if I hold it like this, you can see me very well. We want the light to always travel through the clear side, not these fuzzy side. This fuzzy side actually is like ruffled, like ridges. You know, ruffles have ridges. So we want to make sure that the light is always traveling that way. And if we look at our spectrophotometer again here, okay, you see the little white triangle that's really fuzzy and the little white circle that's got lines coming out of it? That tells you where the light source is and where the detector is. We want to put the cuvette in such that the clear sides allow light to go from the light source into that detector. So that circle with the lines coming out of it, and then we've got the triangle, okay? When you are holding the cuvette, hold it only by the ridged side. Don't hold it on the clear side, because if you start holding it on the clear side, like I'm doing here improperly, you're going to put all kinds of oil on this side and this side. And if you do accidentally touch it, you want to grab a chem wipe. They're nice little pieces of paper that are specialized for cleaning nicely in lab. You want to grab a chem wipe and you want to hold the ridged side and you want to clean both sides of your cuvette. Okay. So the cuvette, we can drop that right into our spectrophotometer. It just slides right in. If you're having to push it, you're doing it wrong. Stop and ask an instructor or TA for assistance if you're having to force it. Okay, so at this point in time, we should have the software running. We know it's connected because up here in the upper right, now it's telling us our absorbance. It's not saying no device connected anymore. It's actually giving us an absorbance. That's really good. It's time to use the instrument. But before we can actually use it, we need to calibrate it. Okay, calibration is us telling the instrument how to work properly. Okay. To calibrate this piece of instrumentation, we need to go up into the experiment menu up here at the top. And you see where if I keep going down, there's a thing that says calibrate. Yeah, so we're going to click calibrate, and it's going to be spectrophotometer 1 because we only have the one plugged in. See how that works? You click it, and hopefully A dialog box pops up. Yes. And this dialog box says a countdown timer. It's cool. Let the countdown timer go. It's going to start at 90 seconds, and what it's doing is it's warming up the lamp. You see, we want the lamp to be good and warm and ready to work properly before we take any measurements. If you've ever been in a room where, or a cold garage and someday, you turned on a fluorescent light bulb and it kind of zzz before it fully turns on. Not quite the same thing, but kind of the same thing happening here within our spectrophotometer. We want to make sure that the light source is emitting a solid, constant quality of light as it's working for us. So we still have 44 seconds here. Okay, our light is now warmed up. So now we have the option to finish calibration. Before you hit that, stop for a second. Stop for a second. The thing about this is, right, if we put the cuvette in by itself, it looks like it's satisfying the term blank. See where it says, place a blank cuvette in the device. The thing is, for our blank, we don't necessarily mean an empty cuvette. What we mean is we want our cuvette, yes, but we also want whatever our solvent is that we're measuring or that we're using for our solutions later on. So for example, if you have a copper ion in solution and you know it's dissolved up in water, you would put in the same kind of water you used to make your solutions into your cuvette before you hit that blank button. So make sure you use the proper blank. Whatever your lab tells you your blank is, that's what your blank is. Or if you're supposed to figure that out, remember, think, what solvent am I using for my other samples? So then once you've got it in there, then you can hit that finish calibration button. And when you hit that finish calibration, it's going to eventually finish calibrating here. And there it is. It's done. Now we can hit OK. And we're good to go. We are ready to rock and roll and start taking measurements. Now, a couple of things to make sure, one thing you can do here anyways, that you can do to make sure that your calibration worked right. If you look up at the absorbance level, up in that upper left-hand corner again, it should be really close to 0. Because what we're telling it by blanking our, by putting a blank in our spectrophotometer here, what we're saying is, hey, anything that's in here doesn't absorb, or we're not going to worry about its absorbance. So we should have a 0 absorbance at this point in time. You need to collect some data. So to collect data, there's this green button over here. Now, the nice thing about Logger Pro is you can hover over the icons, and if you wait for a second or two, it's going to pop up with a tooltip to let you know what it does. So we can hit Start Collection. And if we hit Start Collection, wow, we get a whole bunch of collection. Now, one of the things that we need to remember is to, whenever we're done, always hit Stop. But also take a look at what you've collected. And because we didn't set anything up, we are looking at wavelengths 380 nanometers all the way out to looks around like 900. For your lab, you're typically going to want to pick, especially for a Beer's Law experiment, you're going to want to pick one wavelength. Okay, when you are setting up the instrument, you need to make sure that you are collecting the right data. What we have collected over there, there goes my hand, what we collected over there isn't the right data. Click the rainbow up here at the top, taste the rainbow, and then you want to change the settings here. Instead of absorbance versus wavelength, you may want to set it in terms of an absorbance versus concentration kind of experiment. And if you do that, you can specify the exact wavelength that you want to be looking at. And you can select just one wavelength to look at. And that's the right way you should do this Beer's Law experiment that you're going to be doing. So we could say, oh, I don't know, 720 for good measure. Let's say 780 because I'm closer to that. Oh no, it doesn't say 780 exactly. It says 780.4. The world's over. It's all bad. No, it's fine. Just go with 780. It'll be okay. So you click the 780 and then you hit OK. And do I want to store the latest data run? No, because it was useless information for me because I didn't set up my data collection right. So I'm going to say no, and it erases it. Sure. Now it's all brand new, and I can hit collect again, and I'm collecting the data that I need. I can hit stop. Whenever I'm done with a particular solution, I can swap solutions in and out here. I can hit the collect and stop as many times as I need in order to collect my data. Okay, another thing that I forgot. Okay, down in the other corner, down over here, down there, yeah, there is this box that says absorbance at, and it's got the wavelength that you are measuring the absorbance at. That's the number that you want to write down in your lab notebooks after you've put the solution in. Let the instrument really kind of level off in terms of what that absorbance value is. It really shouldn't be changing that awful much, especially in the 10th place. Probably not that much in the 100th place either. So let that number level off for, it might take you 10 seconds tops, and then record that number. Again, we're doing it wrong. Record that number, the absorbance, in your lab notebook. When you are done, you need to export your data. Now the thing is, if you go just to File and you say Save As, you won't be able to access your data on anything that doesn't have the Logger Pro software. Any computer that doesn't have Logger Pro, it won't work. So make sure you go down to Export As and see where it says Export as a CSV file. That's the one that you want, because Excel or any spreadsheet software that's worth its salt will be able to open up a CSV file. Name it something useful. I typically like naming it like Neil Brad because that's my name, but I go my last name first because that's how I roll. And then experiment like 3, and if it's multiple trials, maybe I say trial 1.csv. And maybe I put the date on there for really good measure. Follow the instructions that are in your lab guide. Okay, if you have any questions beyond this, please feel free to ask your instructors. Instructors, did I miss anything?
No. Sounds good.
They seem to be okay with this at least.